Hello there and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations, and if you have guessed that we're going to be working on this little bathroom cabinet, you'd be correct. Now this is something that I actually got dropped off here at the shop for free. It was coming out of a person's cottage. It's got a lot of water damage on the top. They were going to be taking it to the dump, and instead they were kind enough to drop it off here. So it's got some work that needs to happen. I mean, first we have to get rid of that faucet, which is just an awful faucet. And anyway, obviously it leaks like crazy. We have to detach this, which is all kind of, you know, epoxied in, and then we can start taking a look at how we want to refinish it. Now obviously, because it's got the big hole in it for the sink and it's got the hole for the faucet, that have to figure out which way to point. We're still going to leave it as a bathroom cabinet, and whoever buys it, they're welcome to take this big beautiful sink with them if they would like, or they can just replace it with one of their choosing. I mean, this is gorgeous. It's got the white enamel kind of, and it's got black diamond base to it. So if they wanted it, theirs with it. If they don't, then I will find something else to do with it for sure. Now, the other piece about this is that obviously when you have cabinets like this that you repurpose for a bathroom, you need space for all of the hardware inside it. And so they cut away the drawer. So I figure that we're just going to remake this into a little shallow drawer, because if you're anything like me, a little bit of storage is better than no storage. So even if it just means all of the toothpaste and toothbrushes and things get tossed into this little baby drawer, because you can't have it too deep because of, right, all the hardware that goes attached into the sink, then that's better than nothing, and certainly better than just stapling it or gluing it in place, right? So first order of the day is to work at getting all of this stuff removed from it so that we can start cleaning up the wood and getting some elements, especially the countertop, sanded down, because we're going to check and see how bad that water damage is and whether or not that surface is still usable. It looks like it will be, but I want to sand down and see what I'm working with. So I am going to get to work. Okay. Got that baby out. This is cast iron. This is a heavy sucker. Oh, and it's been cooler, so it's a good one. But, whew, that was a lot of chiseling to get that out. That was not fun. And it is super hot here, and I am super sweaty. But the next thing on the agenda is, before I do a really good clean, I've kind of brushed it all down, but I have major sanding to do. So it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time washing it all down when I'm going to have to wash it all down later. So I'm going to start. It's mostly this countertop. I have to definitely sand out and smooth out that hole. May have to do a little bit of wood filler there, but mostly I want to sand down the water damage, try and create a nice even surface before we get started on anything else. So that's my job now. Yay. All right, the sink is out, finally, which was just a little bit of a challenge for me. But I've got it kind of sanded down, and the top is not in as bad of shape as I thought it was going to, so that's kind of exciting. What it does need is a little bit of wood fill, and especially around this edge where it was pretty wedged in and anchored in, and quite honestly I think that it was sort of chipped already anyway. So what I am going to do is I'm going to use two kinds of wood fill. I have it in a tube just so I can squirt it down into here. There's a little bit of wood damage and cracking here, so I'm just gonna fill that all in, almost like you would caulking. And I am going to take this wood fill, and I'm just gonna start to level out this surface. Again, I'm not filling this hole, I'm leaving it for whomever to either use the existing sink or put in a sink of their choice, although that Kohler sink is kind of awesome. So, I mean, if they don't want it, I'm perfectly happy to keep it and do another project with it. So I'm going to just simply be filling this, and we'll see how it goes. I may have to do a couple of coats of it just in here to fill this in and make sure it's nice and smooth. But I will fill this, sand this, and, well, fill it, let it dry, and sand it. This one, I'm gonna be, that's too small a tip, I'd be waiting forever. Oh yes, bigger hole, that's better, that's better. So in this one, I'm just gonna run the bead right along that back line, which will be fine because I will take my finger and just kind of make sure that it's nice and smooth, let it dry, and when it's painted, we'll have a much smoother, more continuous surface back there. So I'm gonna get this done, let it set up, sand it all out, dust it all off, and then we're ready to start painting. Yay! We are now ready to start putting some paint on our project. So you saw that this got all sanded down, so it's all ready to go, and it's all been wiped down and cleaned off. We're good. I have taken all the hardware off the front door, and I'll paint it separately just because I'm spraying the latch and the hinges black. So I've got a little bit of contrast, and I'll do the two knobs for that top drawer are going to be black as well, so we have a bit of contrast. So I'm looking at, you know, this came out of a cottage. It's likely to go back into a cottage, so I am looking at doing a little bit more cottage core, you know, kind of fit in with a little bit of that vibe. And I quite like the idea of a green. And, you know, there's a lot of lovely greens. I'm just kind of looking at a sheet of paper. I want to record what this color looks like. So what I've sort of worked out is I'm going to use Apothecary as a base. And I'm going to go with roughly 5 parts of Apothecary. Three, 4, 5, and because I'm going to want to do 2 coats, I'm actually going to double the recipe. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And just putting that out of the way so I don't dump it over. And I want it to go a little bit darker. I mean, this is a beautiful color, but I want it to be a little bit more rich. So I am going to add Fancy Farm Girl to it. So I'm going to add to my 5 parts of Apothecary, I'm going to add 2 parts of Fancy Farm Girl because I doubled the recipe. I'm going to add 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I did my little tester like I always do on my plastic paper, so just don't think I'm doing this off the top of my head. I always take my little acetate and dab the colors. So I had thought that this would be okay, right? Coming in as darker than the Apothecary. And this is quite a lovely color. So you may decide you're done with that. I decided that I wanted a little bit more yellowed. Not lots, but just a bit. So I am going to add in some flourished. So here I'm taking in 2 scant parts. So the recipe would be 5 parts apothecary, 2 parts of fancy farm girl, and 1 part, and that was a little bit too little, and 1 part of spirited. Right, so this is from the Bright Slime. They self-seal. Once we mix it with all this amount, it doesn't count, it won't. But, and I don't know if you can tell the difference, it just sort of brightened it up a little bit. It took it and this is what I do for my records. Okay, so I've got, that's a color that I've mixed, and I will keep that sheet so that I then have kind of some of my own color mixing charts. Let me get rid of those so I can put lids on these before I dump everything. And then I'm gonna get this painted. I'm gonna do at least 2 coats on it. I'm not doing any, ooh, sorry, paint all over my hands. I'm not gonna do any fancy treatment because, you know, this is going in a bathroom, and I'm assuming it'll be, you know, if it goes into a cottage, it's gonna be a relatively small space. So you're not looking at it being, you know, super dramatic, but look at that color. I love that green. I hope you guys can see that. That's beautiful. And that little bit of yellow in there, for me, for my eye, makes the world a difference. I mean, if you can't see a difference, then don't worry about it. But it's all, you know, you guys all have different monitors. I don't know if you see the color, but this to me is just this really perfect kind of farmhousey green. It's gonna look lovely in a bathroom. And I think the contrast with, and I was doing like the black hinges and knobs because the sink that we have is white with an underside of black that shows. Now I will sell this as is or make it available with that cast iron sink for an additional fee. But if they're buying both pieces, it'll be a deal, just because people might not want that sink. However, it is a Kohler cast iron enamel sink. And it's probably, it alone is probably worth way more than I'm selling this piece for. And I'm not gonna charge a lot for it, but I don't wanna sell it with the piece if they don't want the sink. So if they're just going to be disposing of it afterward, then I'm not gonna make them pay the price for it. And I'll sell the sink. So I'm gonna get 2 coats on, and then I'll come back at you. But oh, I'm loving this color. Now that our paint is all dry, I am looking to do a light sanding on this piece. So I do have, this is a fairly new one. This is a sanding pad that has been worn down. I'm mostly looking to just kind of smooth off the paint, and you can feel the difference between where it's been sanded and where it hasn't. And then I'll lightly do the edges because this is an antique piece. You know, having a little bit of wear here and there looks very age appropriate for it. But I'm not looking at doing a huge distressing, just in strategic wear areas. So just kind of lightly here and there, mostly edges, a little bit on corners, and then we'll get it all dusted off and ready for sealing. Now that my piece is sanded and dusted, it's time to seal. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm going to seal it with. I am using a Rust-Oleum Marine coating. So this is the Spar Varnish line. It requires you to clean with mineral spirits. But we saw at the beginning that this piece had leakage around the taps and around the sink, and just before that dries in a lump. And it had caused warping and things. It had just a natural kind of a varnish on it, nothing in particular. This is an old piece of wood. It needs something a little bit hardier. And so I am sealing it deliberately with a marine grade coating. I ordered this off Amazon. I will leave a link to it. So it's not particularly difficult to find. It may be a little bit more costly than sealing it with Big Top, but it's going to last. And, bathrooms and kitchens take a lot of abuse. And if you're going to the trouble of refinishing it, you're putting a hole into a piece of furniture and sinking in a sink and doing all the plumbing and stuff, you want it to work. In which case, it's worth the extra to go and get a sealer that's designed to be wet. So this sealer is for anything above the water line, right? So any of the wood top and the wood finish, it's getting splashed all the time, it's getting baked in the sun, it's got a UV protectant, it's hardy. And so that's what you want. It takes about 4 to 6 hours to dry because it's got a gloss to it. This is a clear gloss. I think that there are matte ones out there, but they're hard to find. So I'm gonna do the whole piece in it. I'm not as worried about the water getting down here, but I want it to look consistent. The difference is this. I'm gonna do about 4 coats on the top, not just one. So I'm going to apply one, let it dry for 4 to 6 hours. I'm going to sand it lightly, take all the dust off, apply a second coat. I'm gonna do that 4 times because I wanna make sure that this is sealed. Now this is a clear sealer. I don't know what it looks like over white. So before any of you ask me, I don't know over time how much this would yellow or not yellow. I have deliberately chosen a color that if it chooses to yellow, you're not really going to notice at all, so it would be fine. But because I haven't tested it over white, I don't know for certain, guys. I can't tell you. But, and it is a little bit stinky. I've got my fans here going full blast for me. Not as stinky as some products, but it's certainly not the all-natural DIY that I'm used to. But I'm using a sponge brush. I'm applying it lightly. I would rather have a number of thin coats on than try and glob a really thick coat on. But that's all that I'm going to be doing to this piece to get it finished, is getting it sealed up, and on the top, get multiple coats. All right, I've got multiple coats of our marine sealer on this, and it does take a while. It's pretty hot and sticky outside, so that has really slowed down the process, but it takes a while to be able to dry. And again, while it's drying, you really don't want to have it outside so bugs land on it and get stuck into your surface. But you can see, and I hope you can kind of see the reflection from the lights, this is pretty slick and shiny, which doesn't kind of fit the antique look I'm after. But it does seal it, which is what I needed. So what I am doing is I am going to look at putting a coat of wax over top. Now I'm not putting the wax on necessarily to act as the sealer, though it will do that also. So it's just another layer of protection, but I am doing it so it dulls it down. And you can maybe see here, this has got some wax on it. It doesn't have that same shine. Now, unlike, I'm just looking at one section that I missed. Now, because this is a pretty slick surface, if I went to wipe that wax back right now, it would all slide off. So what I am looking at doing is waxing the piece and then leaving it overnight to kind of harden, and then lightly buffing it tomorrow. So I need more of it to kind of stick onto my surface to try and maybe dull down that shine just a little bit, right? But the more important part was getting this sealed in a way that it was going to be fully functional in a wet environment. I mean, there's just no way that you're gonna have any kind of a bathroom counter that doesn't get water on it, right? And I'm not even gonna blame it on the kids, just period, adults period. So I'm going to get a nice even coat of wax on this so that tomorrow I can just lightly buff it out, and that hopefully some of it is dried on there and sticks. I don't know. This is my first time, so we'll see how it goes. But visually, I'm liking it better with the wax on top. But man, I needed to have that more heavy duty sealer on there. So we'll see how that goes. And here is our cute little finished bathroom vanity. Now, I have to tell you, that wax on top was inspired, because you can see it took the shine right down, dulled it all out nicely, which I love, more the flat look. Personal choice. You could have left it shiny if you want to. But whether you leave it shiny or whether you take it back to flat, we know that it is nicely sealed. So perfect now for use in a bathroom. I mean, you know, I can't imagine somebody not wanting this sink with it. Beautiful, beautiful cast iron enamel sink. I was horrified to discover how much they cost. But the other thing that we did with this was that we did create the little half drawer. So it slides in, it has a stopper so it doesn't go in any further, which is perfect. It allows for all of the plumbing to be inserted. And I think that whoever buys it, all that they really need is to get a little black cast iron look tap to be able to go with it, which would be the perfect finishing touch. Super cute. Hopefully you got a couple of good ideas along the way. You know, I like it to be something that you pick up a couple of tips. If you didn't know about the marine grade sealer, that's a good one to keep in mind whenever you're doing something that you really want to be a little bit more weather resistant, a little bit hardier than any of the other regular sealers could be. Let me know what you think about this makeover, you guys. Love to hear from you. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.